The atomic bombing of Hiroshima, a historical tragedy and a lesson for humanity. August 6, 1945, has become an indelible milestone in human history. On that fateful morning, the city of Hiroshima in Japan, peaceful urban center with hundreds of thousands of civilians, was annihilated in an instant by the first atomic bomb ever used in warfare. The explosion not only ended the lives of hundreds of thousands of innocent people but also ushered humanity into a new and haunting era, the nuclear age. Analyzing the causes, course, consequences, and significance of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima helps us better understand the history of World War II while reminding humanity of the horrific cost of war and the responsibility to protect. Causes of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. The context of World War II. World War II 1939–1945 was the largest and most devastating conflict in human history, involving most of the world's major powers. In the Asia-Pacific region, Japan pursued a militaristic policy, invading China, Korea, and many Southeast Asian countries. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, Japan officially entered into direct conflict with the United States. By 1945, the balance of the war had clearly shifted in favor of the Allied powers. Nazi Germany surrendered in May 1945, but Japan remained unwilling to accept unconditional surrender, despite severe losses, continuous bombings, and economic blockade. The strategy of the United States faced two main options: launching a full-scale invasion of the Japanese mainland, which was expected to cause enormous casualties on both sides, using a newly developed weapon of mass destruction, the atomic bomb, to force Japan to surrender quickly. The Manhattan Project, the U.S. program to develop atomic weapons, had been completed after years of massive investment. American leaders believed that using the atomic bomb would shorten the war, reduce American military casualties, and demonstrate the overwhelming power of the United States on the global stage. Political and deterrence factors beyond military objectives. The atomic bombing also carried significant political motives. The United States aimed to send a deterrent message to the Soviet Union and other nations, asserting its post-war superpower status. Hiroshima was selected because it was an important military and industrial center and had suffered relatively little prior damage, allowing for a clear assessment of the bomb's destructive power. The course of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. Time and execution of the bombing. On the morning of August 6, 1945, at 8:15 a.m., a B-29 bomber named Enola Gay of the U.S. Army Air Forces dropped an atomic bomb codenamed Little Boy on Hiroshima. The bomb detonated at an altitude of approximately 600 meters above the ground, creating a massive fireball with temperatures reaching millions of degrees Celsius. Within seconds, everything within several kilometers was completely incinerated. The blinding flash and powerful shockwave flattened buildings, bridges, schools, and hospitals, turning the entire city into a sea of flames. 2. The scene of destruction. Those closest to the epicenter were vaporized instantly. Others farther away suffered severe burns, blindness, or injury. The Oder River was filled with corpses. Many victims jumped into the water in desperation to cool their burns but ultimately perished. Hiroshima, once a thriving city, became a wasteland marked by human shadows burned into stone walls, faint cries for help amid the ruins, and an atmosphere of death and despair. Roman 3. Consequences of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. Human casualties. It is estimated that approximately 140,000 people died in Hiroshima by the end of 1945, the majority of whom were civilians, including women, children, and the elderly. Many victims did not die immediately but succumbed months or years later due to radiation exposure. Survivors, known as hibakusha, suffered long-term consequences such as cancer, congenital deformities, chronic illness, and social discrimination. 2. Environmental and long-term effects. Radiation from the explosion contaminated the land, water, and air for an extended period. For many years, plants could not grow, wildlife disappeared, and residents lived in constant fear of disease. This was the first time humanity witnessed the long-term effects of nuclear weapons destruction that did not end in a moment but continued across generations. 3. Impact on Japan and the world. 3 days after Hiroshima, the United States dropped a second atomic bomb on Nagasaki. Faced with unimaginable devastation, Japan announced its unconditional surrender on August 15, 1945, officially ending World War II. However, the world subsequently entered a nuclear arms race, living under the constant threat of global annihilation. Roman 4. Historical significance and lessons learned. The beginning of the nuclear age. The atomic bombing of Hiroshima marked the beginning of the nuclear age, an era in which humanity possesses the power to destroy itself. It serves as a stark warning about the misuse of scientific and technological advancements for military purposes. 2. The value of peace. Hiroshima has become a global symbol of the anti-nuclear movement and the call for. The city today is not only rebel, but also stands as a living reminder of the horrors of war and the necessity of peace. 3. Responsibility of humanity. The tragedy of Hiroshima raises profound ethical questions. Can military objectives ever justify the mass destruction of civilian lives? From this, humanity must recognize its responsibility to control weapons of mass destruction and to resolve conflicts through dialogue rather than violence. The atomic bombing of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, stands as one of the most catastrophic events in modern history. In a single moment, a weapon born from advanced scientific research unleashed unprecedented destruction upon a densely populated city. Beyond the immediate loss of life, the bombing reshaped global politics, warfare, and ethical discourse. Examining the causes, execution, aftermath, and historical significance of the Hiroshima bombing provides critical insight into both the conclusion of World War II and the long-term dangers of nuclear weapons. Historical and political causes. Japan's position in the final stage of World War II. By mid-1945, World War II in Europe had come to an end with Germany's surrender, yet the conflict in the Pacific continued. Despite suffering heavy military losses, widespread aerial bombings, and severe shortages of resources, the Japanese government refused to surrender unconditionally. The prevailing ideology of militarism and national honor led Japan to prepare for a final, costly defense of its homeland. This refusal placed the United States in a difficult position, as prolonging the war risked further massive casualties on both sides. The United States and the decision to use atomic weapons. The U.S. leadership considered a large-scale invasion of Japan, an operation expected to result in millions of casualties. In contrast, the successful development of atomic weapons under the Manhattan Project offered an alternative means to end the war swiftly. American officials argued that deploying the atomic bomb would force Japan to surrender quickly, thereby saving lives in the long run. At the same time, the decision was influenced by strategic considerations, including the desire to demonstrate technological and military superiority in the emerging post-war world order. Strategic and symbolic considerations. Hiroshima was chosen as a target due to its military infrastructure, transportation networks, and relative lack of previous destruction. This allowed U.S. planners to clearly observe and measure the bomb's impact. The bombing thus served both a tactical military purpose and a symbolic demonstration of unprecedented destructive power. The execution of the atomic bombing. The bombing operation on the morning of August 6, 1945, a U.S. B-29 bomber, Enola Gay, released an atomic bomb known as Little Boy over Hiroshima. The bomb detonated in midair, unleashing an intense flash of light and heat far beyond anything previously witnessed in warfare. Within seconds, the explosion generated a powerful shockwave that obliterated buildings, infrastructure, and human life across a wide radius. The city was effectively destroyed almost instantaneously. Short-term and long-term consequences. Human loss and suffering. By the end of 1945, an estimated 140,000 people had died as a result of the Hiroshima bombing. Many deaths occurred not at the moment of explosion, but in the weeks and months that followed, due to radiation sickness and untreated injuries. Survivors, later known as hibakusha, endured long-lasting physical illnesses such as leukemia and other cancers, as well as psychological trauma. In addition, many faced social stigma, as fears of radiation exposure led to discrimination in employment and marriage. Environmental and generational effects. The release of radiation contaminated the environment, affecting soil, water, and living organisms. Although Hiroshima was eventually rebuilt, concerns about genetic damage and long-term health effects persisted for decades. The bombing revealed that nuclear weapons inflict harm, not only in the immediate aftermath, but also across generations. Global political impact. The atomic bombing of Hiroshima, followed by the bombing of Nagasaki 3 days later, compelled Japan to surrender on August 15, 1945. While the bombings brought a swift end to World War II, they also initiated the global nuclear arms race. During the Cold War, nuclear weapons became central to international power struggles, raising the possibility of total human destruction on an unprecedented scale. Historical significance and ethical implications. Transformation of warfare. Hiroshima marked a turning point in military history. For the first time, a single weapon possessed the capacity to destroy an entire city. This fundamentally altered the nature of warfare and forced nations to reconsider the limits of military power. Moral questions and human responsibility. The bombing continues to provoke intense ethical debate. While some argue it was a necessary action to end the war, others condemn it as an unjustifiable attack on civilians. This moral dilemma highlights the tension between military objectives and humanitarian values. A global call for peace today, Hiroshima stands as a powerful symbol of peace and anti-nuclear advocacy. Memorials, museums, and survivor testimonies serve to educate future generations about the consequences of nuclear war. The memory of Hiroshima urges humanity to pursue diplomacy, disarmament, and peaceful conflict resolution.